Tra-la-la-la-la.
Oh, thanks, Dad.
You're gonna like this.
What is it, a birdcage? It's a puppy, isn't it? Yeah, it is, I can tell.
Go ahead, open it.
You're kidding.
I hope he's housebroken.
Oh, isn't he cute?
Gremlins is so fucking good. I remember when I was 10, my family bought the VHS tape at a video store. I didn't really know what to expect. I wasn't really that big on horror back then, but once I sat down at home and watched it, I was never the same. Not long after I got the VHS tape of Gremlins 2, and yeah, honestly I was just obsessed with the movies for a good few years after that. It was probably up there as one of my most rewatched tapes I had. It's the kind of movie that never gets boring to watch, just like Aliens or the original Predator. Yeah, I own those and watched the shit out of them as a kid too. I really have to thank Gremlins for being that stepping stone into the horror genre, and thank God my parents weren't that strict about the movies I could watch. Anyways, if you haven't seen Gremlins before, here's the gist. Randall Peltzer is a struggling inventor looking for a gift to give to his son on Christmas. He ends up in a small antique store in Chinatown, and he finds this mysterious furry creature called a Mogwai. The shop owner refuses to sell it, saying it would be too much of a responsibility. But then his grandson secretly gives it away behind his back anyways, and so our adventure begins. There are 3 rules you must follow when taking care of a Mogwai. First of all, keep him away from bright lights, and especially the sunlight, or it will kill him. Don't let him get wet or he will multiply, and the most important rule of all, don't let him eat after midnight, because then he will turn into a horrible little monster called a gremlin. Being an inventor, the father takes to calling the new family pet Gizmo. He's actually pretty friendly and cute. And of course, as you would expect, once the son gets Gizmo, the rules do get broken, and chaos and mayhem ensues. Apparently every other Mogwai is a mischievous asshole, playing pranks on the family dog and bullying Gizmo for no reason. There isn't any kind of transition into it, they are literally just boring to fuck with you. The best part of the movie is the build-up and suspense as the mystery behind the Mogwai slowly unravels. Even as an adult, I'll say there are some genuinely creepy scenes in this movie, like the scene where Gizmo gets wet, screaming in pain, and then these furballs just pop out of his back and grow into more Mogwai. The music, and especially the effects and the close-ups on the creatures, create a foreboding mood. If anyone ever tries to tell you that practical effects are too dated or too fake-looking compared to CG, then you really should show them this movie, because the effects in this are so amazing, between the monster designs and how much movement and expression they can get out of them. It really is fascinating. Anyways, all hell just breaks loose once the gremlins show up, and especially when one of them manages to find more water to multiply with, culminating in a straight-up town invasion. By this point, the movie goes from being a suspenseful horror movie into more of a comedy, by showing how goofy the gremlins are. They don't really have any goal or motivation, they basically just want to have fun and they don't give a shit about how many people are hurt in the process. They play pranks, break people's cars, imitate human behavior a lot by dancing, and well, role-playing, I guess. In a weird way, you can't help but cheer on the monsters because of how entertaining they are to watch. The bar scene is one of the biggest highlights of the movie, second only to the theater scene, which is quite possibly the greatest moment in cinematic history. That isn't to say the human characters aren't likable and memorable too. In fact, they're great. The son character, Billy Peltzer, is just a humble bank worker trying to find his place in the world. He's shy, but well-meaning. Then you got his crush and co-worker, Kate. And who can forget the most badass mom in a horror film? The dad, Randall, like I said, is a struggling inventor. He's always trying to come up with strange technology to make everyday life easier. He tries to create an orange juice maker, an egg cracking machine, and a device that lets you shave on the go. Only problem, none of his machines quite work right. It really makes you feel for the man, because all he wants to do is revolutionize the world. He's a great father that loves his family. You got the paranoid, xenophobic Murray Futterman, then you got this Deagle. She's basically a huge bitch with a stick up her ass, and then she dies. Get fucked, bro. The Gremlins themselves are based on an old folklore creature that supposedly sabotaged aircrafts and machines back in World War II, specifically for the British Royal Air Force.
Gremlins. You gotta watch out for the foreigners, because they plant gremlins in their machinery. That's the same gremlins brought down our planes in the big one.
Big.
That's right. World War II.
Author Roald Dahl popularized the concept of gremlins outside of the military, writing a children's story about them. Even an old Bugs Bunny cartoon short, Falling Hair, referenced them as early as 1943. For the Mogwai, they're actually based on ancient Chinese mythology. Supposedly they're demons that love to harm humans and cause chaos. The term Mo in Mogwai is derived from the Sanskrit of a Buddhist demon called Mara, which loved to tempt people into sin and self-destruction. In modern Chinese mythology, they're basically the souls of the dead, seeking revenge against whoever wronged them. Confused yet? Interestingly enough, in legend, they had mating seasons triggered by rain, as it was a sign of abundance and fertility. Rain. Water. The way you would get rid of the Mogwai was by burning paper banknotes, so they have money to use in the afterlife. Anyways, with the movie's popularity and success, the original meaning and lore of the Mogwai is pretty much gone. Honestly, it was pretty hard to even find much information on the old legend. I guess it's just that buried now. Well, getting back to the movie, I should also mention the score. It was done by Jerry Goldsmith, who actually won a Saturn Award for his work on the film. It perfectly encapsulates the mixture of suspense, thrills, and mischievous nature of the Gremlins. The theme in particular is probably one of the most unique and memorable film themes I've ever heard. For Gizmo's famous song, apparently it was originally hummed by a child actress who was a friend of his. It is worth noting that there was a lot of back and forth on how the movie should be made. At first, Joe Dante wanted the movie to be very dark and more horror-oriented. There were plans to have scenes of gremlins attacking a McDonald's and eating the people instead of the burgers. Billy's mom was originally going to get killed and decapitated by the gremlins when they first show up. Billy's dog was going to get eaten, and Gizmo was supposed to be the main villain. Spielberg and other people involved in the production didn't like how dark the movie was going to be, so they eventually settled on having Gizmo be the protagonist and have the other Mogwai be the villains. In general, the movie's violence was toned down to make it more family-friendly. Not that it helped that much. Even with a toned-down version of the movie, it was still shocking to many audiences at the time. Most infamously in legend, during one of the screenings of the film, a mother walked out of the theater early with her daughter, complaining that the movie was too violent, and as she was raging, her kid desperately sneaked back into the theater to finish the movie anyways. Financially, Gremlins was a huge success, and plenty of critics praised it, but some also joined in on complaining about how dark the movie was, compared to most PG movies at the time. All of this was even parodied and mocked in the sequel, Gremlins 2. The film was actually a big inspiration for the creation of the PG-13 rating, a middle ground between PG and not quite a hard R rating. After the movie came out, there were all kinds of movies trying to cash in on the new Little Monster Rampage craze. You had Munchies, Critters, and Ghoulies, just to name a few, with varying degrees of quality. In terms of what the movie does wrong, I can't say I really have many complaints. It's pretty damn close to a perfect movie in my opinion. Though if there is one thing I never cared for, it's Kate's sad Christmas story later in the movie. Even Spielberg and some others originally wanted it removed, but since it was Dante's movie and his vision, they just let it stay in anyways. And he himself states it fits thematically with the movie. For me, it's not that the scene is necessarily bad, or really too dark, it's more so that it just comes out of nowhere and grinds the movie to a halt for this random exposition that ultimately means nothing to the main story. It's the kind of scene that you could just take out and it wouldn't change much, but then again, I guess it does add a little bit more depth to Kate's character as well. A few years after the film's success, Joe Dante was approached several times to direct a sequel, and eventually they got him on board under the condition that he had complete creative control of the project. And what was the result of that?
Spreading the news, I'm leaving today. I wanna be a part of it. New York, New York, yes sir.
The best movie ever made.